Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm Alex, and this is English in Fluency, the place where real English happens. Not the textbook kind, not the kind where everyone speaks in perfect, slow, robotic sentences. The kind you actually hear when you're talking to real people, watching movies, sitting in a cafe, and overhearing a conversation at the next table. That kind. And today, we are diving into something that comes up every single day in English conversation. And yet, so many learners miss it completely. We're talking about how native speakers express what they like, what they don't like, what they prefer, and what they'd rather avoid, and how they do all of that without ever sounding rude, blunt, or awkward. This is one of those things that sounds simple on the surface. You might be thinking, okay, Alex, I already know I like and I don't like. What's the big deal? And I hear you. I really do. But here's the thing. If you only use I like and I don't like, you sound okay. You get the message across. But you don't sound natural. You don't sound fluent. You don't sound like someone who's been using English for years and years in real, everyday life. And the goal here isn't just to be understood. The goal is to sound like you belong in the conversation. Like English is a space where you feel comfortable, where you can say exactly what you mean, in a way that feels effortless and warm, and genuinely human. So today, we're going to do a full, deep listening practice session. We're going to listen to conversations between real characters, people who are navigating their opinions, their tastes, their preferences, and we're going to break everything down together. You'll hear the phrases. You'll understand the context. You'll feel the emotion behind the words. And by the time we're done, you will not just know these expressions. You will feel them. And that's when the real learning happens. Before we jump in, I just want to say, if you're new here, welcome. Seriously. Hit that subscribe button right now, because every single week we put out content that's designed to take your English from good to genuinely fluent. And if you've been here a while, thank you. You are the reason this channel exists. Okay, let's go. So, first, let's set the scene a little. Why is expressing preferences such a rich and important part of English conversation? Think about it. Every single day, people are making choices. What to eat, where to go, what movie to watch, what job to take, how to spend the weekend, what kind of person they want to be around. And when two people are talking, they're constantly sharing their preferences with each other. It's one of the most basic forms of human connection. I like this. Do you like this? Oh, you don't? Interesting. I prefer that. What about you? These moments are everywhere, and the way someone expresses a preference tells you so much about them. Their personality, their mood, their level of confidence, even their relationship with the person they're talking to. Someone who says, "I hate mushrooms," sounds very different from someone who says, "I'm not really a huge fan of mushrooms, to be honest." Both people dislike mushrooms, but the way they say it creates a completely different impression. One sounds harsh, the other sounds thoughtful, and a little self-aware. And in English conversation, especially at the B1 level and above, that softness, that politeness, that nuance, it matters enormously. All right, let's get into our first scene. I want you to listen carefully. Don't worry about understanding every single word. Just feel the conversation. Feel the rhythm. Notice how the characters are talking to each other. And then we'll slow everything down and look at it piece by piece. Our first scene takes place on a Sunday morning. Two friends, we'll call them Sophie and Daniel, are trying to decide where to go for brunch. Sophie has some ideas. Daniel has some opinions. Let's listen. Sophie says, "Okay, so I was thinking maybe we could go to that new Italian place on the corner. I've heard really good things about it." Daniel responds, "Oh yeah, I know the one you mean. Hmm, I mean, it sounds nice, but honestly, I'm not really in the mood for Italian today. I don't know why. I just feel like something a bit lighter, you know?" Sophie says, "Totally fair. What about the little cafe we went to last month? The one with the garden?" Daniel's face lights up. "Oh, that place? Yes. I actually loved that place. The coffee was incredible, and I really liked how quiet it was. It didn't feel rushed at all." Sophie laughs. "Right? It's one of my favorites, too. I'm not really into those loud, busy brunch spots. They kind of stress me out." Daniel nods. "Same. I'd much rather have a nice slow morning somewhere relaxed than fight over a table somewhere that's trying too hard to be trendy." Sophie laughs. "Fight over a table. Ha. Okay. The garden cafe it is. Okay. Take a breath." That was a beautiful little conversation. Completely natural, completely real, and packed with expressions that you absolutely need to know. Let's go through them one by one, and I want you to really pay attention, not just to what the words mean, but to why the characters chose those words, and how they make the conversation feel warm and comfortable rather than sharp or uncomfortable. The first thing Daniel says when Sophie suggests Italian is, "I'm not really in the mood for Italian today." Now, this is such a common expression, and it does so much work. In the mood for something means that right now, at this moment, you feel like you want that thing. And when Daniel says he's not in the mood, he's expressing a preference without saying, "I don't like Italian," or "I don't want to go there." He's being soft about it. He's leaving room for Sophie's feelings. Because when a friend suggests something, and you just shoot it down with, "No, I don't want that," it can feel a bit cold, right? But "I'm not really in the mood for it." That's gentle. It says this is about me right now, not about your suggestion being bad. It keeps the conversation warm. Notice also that Daniel adds, "I don't know why, I just feel like something a bit lighter." He's almost apologizing for his preference in a friendly way. He's explaining himself. He's inviting Sophie into his thinking rather than just shutting down her idea. This is very, very typical of how English speakers, especially British and Australian speakers, soften their opinions in conversation. They explain. They qualify. They say things like, "I don't know," or "I just feel like," to make their preferences sound less demanding. Then we get to Daniel talking about the garden cafe, and his language completely changes. He says, "I actually loved that place." Did you catch that word, actually? This is one of those little words that completely changes the feeling of a sentence. When you say, "I loved that place," it's nice, but "I actually loved that place," that actually adds a layer of genuine surprise or emphasis. It's like Daniel is saying, "Okay, I wasn't expecting to feel so strongly, but I really did love it." It makes the compliment feel more sincere, more spontaneous, more real. He also says, "I really liked how quiet it was." The word "really" here is doing the same kind of work. It's an intensifier. It makes the feeling bigger. And the specific thing he liked, the quietness, the way it didn't feel rushed, This is really sophisticated English. He's not just saying, "It was good." He's describing the feeling of being there, the atmosphere. And that kind of detail makes conversation much richer and more engaging. Sophie then says, "I'm not really into those loud, busy brunch spots." This is another classic expression. I'm not really into something. It's a very casual, very common way to say you don't like or enjoy something. Into, here, means interested in, or enthusiastic about. So, I'm not really into it is softer than I don't like it. It sounds more like a personality trait, more like a personal taste, less like a strong judgment or rejection. And then she adds, "They kind of stress me out." Kind of is another one of those softening words, like sort of or a bit. When you say something kind of does something, you're not being absolute about it. You're being approximate, gentle. And stress me out is a really natural, relatable expression for when something makes you feel anxious or overwhelmed. People use this all the time. The commute stresses me out. Crowds kind of stress me out. Planning parties stresses me out. It's informal, it's honest, and it sounds very natural. Finally, Daniel says, "I'd much rather have a nice slow morning somewhere relaxed than fight over a table." I'd much rather. This is a fantastic expression for expressing a strong preference. Much rather means you significantly prefer one thing over another. It's emphatic. It's clear. But it's still polite. You're not attacking the other option. You're just saying that this other option is genuinely better for you. And then Daniel being a little bit funny about it. Fight over a table somewhere that's trying too hard to be trendy. That's just personality. That's humor. And that's what makes real conversation feel alive. Wonderful. So now you have a whole set of tools from just that one short scene. Let me give you a moment to absorb those before we move on. I want you to actually say some of these out loud. Try saying, "I'm not really in the mood for that." Say it like you mean it. Casual, easy, not stiff. Now try, "I'm not really into spicy food." And now, "I'd much rather stay in than go out tonight." Feel how those expressions sit in your mouth. Feel how they sound. That's the practice that makes the difference. Now, let's move into our second scene. This one is a little different. It's a conversation at work. Two colleagues, let's call them Marcus and Priya, are discussing plans for a team lunch. Marcus is in charge of organizing it. Priya has preferences. Let's see how she expresses them. Marcus says, "Hey Priya, I'm trying to organize the team lunch for next Friday. I was thinking maybe we could do that sushi restaurant near the office. What do you think?" Priya pauses for just a second. "Oh, sushi. Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong, the restaurant is lovely. I've heard great things. It's just that, honestly, sushi's not really my thing. I always feel a bit awkward trying to eat it, and I worry about the others too. Some people on the team have seafood allergies." Marcus nods. "No, that's a really good point. So what would you prefer? Do you have somewhere in mind?" Priya says, What about the Mediterranean place on Wells Street? I know a few people on the team have been there and they really enjoyed it. And I personally love the fact that they have good options for everyone. Vegetarians, meat eaters, people with allergies. It's just easier." Marcus thinks about it. "Yeah, I have to say, I'd probably lean more towards something like that too. It just takes the pressure off, you know? Everyone can find something they like." Priya agrees enthusiastically. "Exactly. And the food is genuinely really good there. I'm quite fond of their grilled aubergine dish, if they still have it. Marcus laughs. All right, Mediterranean it is. I'll make the reservation. Beautiful. What a warm, professional, considerate conversation. Priya has a clear preference. She disagrees with Marcus's idea, and she does it in the most polite and thoughtful way possible. Let's pull this apart. The first thing Priya does is acknowledge Marcus's suggestion before she pushes back on it. She says, "Don't get me wrong, the restaurant is lovely." This is crucial. "Don't get me wrong" is one of the most useful phrases in English for exactly these situations. It tells the other person, "I'm not being negative. I'm not dismissing you. I see the value in what you're saying. But I have a different perspective." It's a kind of verbal cushion. It softens what comes next. And then she adds, "I've heard great things," which further validates Marcus's idea before she shares her reservation. Then she says, "Sushi's not really my thing." This is a more casual version of, "I'm not really into sushi." It's very idiomatic. "Not really my thing" means it doesn't suit my tastes. I don't particularly enjoy it. It's not something I go for. And it's gentle. It's not dramatic. It's not, "I hate sushi." It's just a quiet, honest statement of personal taste. She also says, "I always feel a bit awkward trying to eat it." And this is wonderful because she's giving a reason. She's not just saying she doesn't like it and leaving Marcus feeling rejected. She's explaining herself, and her explanation is charming and relatable. Most people have experienced that slightly awkward feeling with certain foods. It humanizes the preference, and then she's very thoughtful to bring in the team's needs. Some people on the team have seafood allergies. She's turning her personal preference into a group consideration, which makes it much easier for Marcus to accept the change of direction. When Marcus asks her what she'd prefer, Priya responds with, what about the Mediterranean place?" The at the beginning is small but important. It shows she's thinking. It shows she's not just rushing to push her own agenda. She's genuinely considering. And notice that she doesn't say, "We should go to the Mediterranean place." She says, "What about?" She's proposing, not insisting. That's a gentler way to make a suggestion. And then she builds her case. She mentions that other team members have been there and enjoyed it. She mentions the variety of options. She's thinking about everyone. She ends with, "It's just easier," which is again one of those humble, low-pressure ways to advocate for your preference. Not, "My idea is better." Just, "It makes things simpler." That's much easier for the other person to agree with. Marcus then uses a great phrase. "I'd probably lean more towards something like that too." The phrase "lean towards something" means to slightly favor it, to find yourself naturally drawn to it. It's a thoughtful, nuanced way to express a preference. And notice he says, "I'd probably," that "probably" is another softener. It makes his agreement sound considered rather than immediate, which adds authenticity. And Priya at the end says, "I'm quite fond of their grilled aubergine dish." "Quite fond of" is a more formal, gentle way to express liking something. It's not as strong as "I love." It's a softer, warmer kind of liking. You'll hear this especially in British English. "I'm quite fond of a good cup of tea." "I'm quite fond of walking in the rain." It has a slightly nostalgic, affectionate quality to it. Really beautiful expression. All right, let's keep building. We're going to go into our third scene now. This one is a bit more personal. Two friends, let's call them Ellie and James, are having a conversation about their free time and hobbies. James is trying to get Ellie to come hiking with him. She has a different feeling about it. Let's listen. James says, "Ellie, I really think you'd enjoy hiking if you gave it a proper chance. I've been going almost every weekend this summer, and it's honestly changed my life." Ellie smiles, but looks a little uncertain. "I know you love it, James, and I genuinely admire that. I've never really been into outdoor stuff, if I'm being honest. Like, I know it sounds terrible, but being in the middle of nature for hours isn't really something I find relaxing. I find it a bit overwhelming, actually." James looks surprised. "Really? What do you find relaxing, then?" Ellie thinks for a moment. "Honestly, I tend to prefer things where I can switch my brain off a bit. Reading, cooking something complicated, sometimes just watching a really good film. That kind of thing. I love the feeling of being completely absorbed in something quiet and creative." James nods slowly. "Okay, I get that. I suppose I like hiking partly because it does the opposite for me. It switches my brain off in a different way. All I can think about is the next step." Ellie laughs. "That makes total sense. And honestly, I don't rule it out completely. Maybe a short walk somewhere beautiful, but like a 6-hour mountain trek? I'd probably just be miserable and then feel guilty about it." James laughs. "Fair enough. How about a compromise? There's a really pretty coastal path about 40 minutes from here. It's not intense at all. Maybe 2 hours. Nice view. Coffee at the end." Ellie's face changes. "Oh, coffee at the end? Now you're speaking my language?" That little conversation is just lovely. Let's look at what Ellie does, because she's the one expressing a preference here. Specifically, a preference against something James loves. And she does it with such grace. The first thing she does is validate James's experience. "I know you love it, and I genuinely admire that." This is so important. When you disagree with someone or decline their invitation, starting by acknowledging their perspective makes them feel respected. She's not dismissing what hiking means to him. She's just being honest about herself. Then she says, "I've never really been into outdoor stuff, if I'm being honest." Notice the phrase, "if I'm being honest." This is a really common conversational phrase that signals you're about to share something personal or potentially surprising. It gives a little warning. It says, "I'm trusting you with my real feelings here." It makes the listener feel included, valued. And then she adds, "I know it sounds terrible," which is her being self-aware about the fact that not liking nature might seem strange to someone who loves it. She's acknowledging the potential gap in their perspectives. She also says, "Being in the middle of nature for hours isn't really something I find relaxing." This is a very elegant way to express a dislike. Instead of, "I don't like being in nature," she's phrasing it as something she doesn't find relaxing, which is less about the thing itself and more about her personal experience of it. Subtle difference, but it sounds much more thoughtful. When James asks what she does find relaxing, Ellie says, "I tend to prefer things where I can switch my brain off a bit." The phrase, "I tend to prefer," is great. It expresses a general habitual preference without being absolute. Not, "I only like," or "I always want." Just, "I tend to prefer." It's open, it's honest, and it sounds natural. And then she describes what she loves beautifully. "I love the feeling of being completely absorbed in something quiet and creative." This isn't just expressing a preference. This is expressing the feeling behind the preference, the emotional reason. And when you share the feeling behind what you like or don't like, it makes your conversation so much richer and more connecting. Ellie also says at the end that she doesn't rule it out completely. This is a great phrase. To rule something out means to exclude it from consideration entirely. So when you say you don't rule something out, you're leaving the door open. You're saying it's still a possibility. It's a generous thing to say when you've been declining someone's idea. It keeps the conversation collaborative. And then James offers a compromise. And Ellie's response is, "Coffee at the end? Now you're speaking my language?" What a wonderful, playful expression. "You're speaking my language" means now you're saying something I understand and agree with. Now you're appealing to what I care about. It's warm, funny, and it perfectly captures that moment when an offer suddenly sounds much more appealing. Okay, we've been through 3 full scenes now, and we've covered so much ground. Let me take a moment to just list some of the key expressions we've encountered, and I want you to say each one out loud after me, because that's how you make them yours. Not just by understanding them, by saying them, by feeling them in your body. I'm not really in the mood for that right now. Say it. Feel how casual and honest it sounds. I'm not really into it. Short, simple, effortless. That's not really my thing. Just as easy. Just as honest. I'd much rather do this than that. Strong preference. Still polite. I tend to prefer quieter places. Habitual. Open. Genuine. I'm quite fond of a good cup of tea in the morning. Warm and slightly nostalgic. I don't really find that relaxing, to be honest. Personal and honest without being harsh. I don't rule it out completely. Generous, open-minded, kind. Now you're speaking my language. Playful and real. I'd probably lean towards that option. Thoughtful. Considered. These are your tools. And the more you practice them, the more they'll start to appear naturally when you speak. That's the whole point of listening practice. Not just understanding, but absorbing. Letting the language seep in. Let's do one more scene. This one is a bit longer and a bit more complex. We have 2 people. Let's call them Natalie and Sam, who are planning a holiday together. They have quite different tastes, and they need to find common ground. This is a masterclass in how to express preferences, negotiate, and communicate honestly without damaging the relationship. Listen carefully. Natalie. Okay, so I've been looking at some options for our trip in September. I think I'm leaning towards somewhere warm, like genuinely beach holiday warm. What about the Canary Islands? Sam. The Canary Islands. Yeah, I get the appeal. And don't hate me for this, I'm just not that big on beach holidays. Like, sitting in the sun does nothing for me. I get bored after about 40 minutes. Natalie laughs. 40 minutes. Okay. What do you actually enjoy then? Help me understand. Sam. I think I prefer places where there's a lot to explore. Old cities. History. Places where you can just wander for hours and stumble onto something interesting. Like, I absolutely love that feeling of getting a bit lost in a place and discovering something you didn't expect. Natalie. Okay, that's actually really nice. I love that too, to be honest. I don't only want to lie on a beach. I really can't do cold in September. I have this thing about being warm. When I'm cold and on holiday, I'm just unhappy. Sam. Right, okay. So warm is a non-negotiable for you. Natalie. Yes, warm is non-negotiable. But beyond that, I'm quite flexible. I just want sunshine and maybe a beach nearby, even if we don't spend all day on it, Sam thinks. What about somewhere like Lisbon? Or maybe somewhere in southern Spain? You've got the warmth. You've got incredible history, beautiful architecture, amazing food. Natalie immediately, "Oh, I love Lisbon. I've always wanted to go back. I went once years ago, and I was completely enchanted by it. The trams, the hills, the light in the afternoon. It was unlike anything else." Sam's face lights up. "Wait, you've been? Okay, now I'm even more convinced. Because if you went and came back still wanting to go again, that's a really good sign." Natalie, "It really is. And I'd be more than happy to go back. I think we could spend days just walking around, and I'd still feel like we hadn't seen everything." Sam, "That is literally my ideal holiday. Okay, Lisbon, let's do it." Natalie, "Let's do it. With maybe one afternoon on a beach somewhere nearby just for me." Sam laughs. "Deal. I can do one afternoon, especially if there's good wine involved." Natalie, "Sam, there is always good wine in Portugal." What a perfect conversation. Let's look at what's happening here. Both Natalie and Sam have strong preferences. They're different preferences. And they navigate the whole thing with warmth, humor, and genuine curiosity about each other. That's the goal. Sam says, "I'm just not that big on beach holidays." Not that big on something. This is very similar to not really into it, but slightly more conversational, slightly more casual. You hear this all the time. "I'm not that big on reality TV." "She's not that big on spicy food." It expresses a mild to moderate dislike in a very low-key, comfortable way. There's no drama to it. Sam also says, "Sitting in the sun does nothing for me." This is a brilliant expression. Something does nothing for me means it doesn't give me pleasure. It doesn't appeal to me. I just don't respond to it the way other people do. It's honest without being dismissive. It's not, "The sun is bad." It's, "Personally, it doesn't do anything for me." That personal framing is so useful when you're expressing a preference that might be unusual or contrary. Then Sam describes what he loves with real passion. "I absolutely love that feeling of getting a bit lost in a place and discovering something you didn't expect." The word absolutely here is a strong intensifier. When you say you absolutely love something, there's no question, no ambiguity. It's complete. And the image Sam paints, getting a bit lost, stumbling onto something unexpected, that's not just a preference. That's a feeling. And expressing the feeling behind your preference is always more powerful and more connecting than just stating the preference itself. Natalie then reveals her non-negotiable: warmth. And the way she says it is honest and a little self-aware. "I have this thing about being warm. When I'm cold and on holiday, I'm just unhappy. I have this thing about..." Something is a great phrase for describing a personal quirk or strong preference. It acknowledges that it might seem irrational or unusual, but it's just how you are. "I have this thing about making my bed every morning." She has this thing about being early. It's endearing. It's human. And Sam's response is wonderfully practical. "So warm" is a non-negotiable for you. To say something is non-negotiable means it's not up for debate. It's a requirement. Using this phrase shows that Sam is listening carefully and taking Natalie's preference seriously. And Natalie confirms it. Yes, warm is non-negotiable. But beyond that, I'm quite flexible. This is such good communication. She's being clear about what she needs and generous about everything else. It opens up so much space for them to find a solution. When Natalie says, "I love Lisbon," I've always wanted to go back. The phrase, "I've always wanted to," expresses a long-standing desire or preference. It's not just a current feeling. It's been there for a long time. And then she describes the experience beautifully. I was completely enchanted by it. To be enchanted by something means to be deeply charmed, captivated, under its spell. It's a strong and beautiful word for expressing that something delighted you in a profound way. Sam's response, "If you went and came back still wanting to go again, that's a really good sign," is such a warm and clever thing to say. He's using her own experience as evidence. He's agreeing with her preference by affirming the logic behind it. It's collaborative and appreciative at the same time. And then they wrap it all up with humor and good nature. Natalie asking for one afternoon on a beach. Sam agreeing if there's good wine. Natalie assuring him that Portugal always delivers on wine. The conversation ends with both people happy, both preferences acknowledged and respected, and a plan that genuinely works for everyone. That is the art of expressing preferences politely and naturally in English. Now, let's do a little practice together. I'm going to give you some situations, and I want you to think about what you would say. Take a moment with each one. Don't rush. Think about which expressions feel natural to you. Situation 1. Your friend wants to go to a nightclub on Saturday. You don't really enjoy that kind of environment. You prefer quieter evenings. How do you respond? Think about it. Maybe you'd say something like, "Oh, I love that you're excited about it. Nightclubs are just not really my thing, to be honest. I always end up feeling a bit overwhelmed by the noise. What do you think about a cocktail bar instead? Somewhere we can actually talk?" See what you did there. You validated. You explained honestly. You offered an alternative. Beautiful. Situation 2. Your coworker asks if you want to join the weekly running club before work. You're not a morning person, and you really don't enjoy running. How do you say no without seeming unfriendly or dismissive? Maybe something like, "That's honestly so great that you're doing that. I'm just not really in the morning exercise headspace, and running's never been my thing. I tried it once, and I think my knees never fully forgave me. But I'd love to do something social with the team. Is there anything after work?" Honest, warm, funny, and you've kept the door open. Situation 3. Someone offers you a dish you really don't like. Let's say liver. But you don't want to seem rude. You might say, "Oh, thank you so much, that looks amazing. I'm actually not really a huge fan of liver. It's just one of those things. I've never quite warmed up to it. But everything else looks incredible." That little phrase, "I've never quite warmed up to it," means you've tried, but never come to genuinely like it. It's honest, it's apologetic in a friendly way, and it doesn't make the other person feel bad for offering. These practice moments are so important. Don't just listen to English. Use it, say it, make mistakes, try again. That is the only way this language becomes yours. Before we wrap up today, I want to give you one more thing, a collection of expressions across different levels of liking and disliking, from the strongest positive to the strongest negative, so you can really feel the spectrum. When you absolutely love something, you might say, "I'm absolutely obsessed with it. I'm a huge fan. I love it to pieces," or "I'm completely enchanted by it." These are your most enthusiastic expressions. Save them for things you genuinely feel strongly about, because if you use them all the time, they lose their power. When you quite like something, you might say, "I'm quite fond of it. I really enjoy it. I have a real soft spot for it." Or, "It's something I genuinely appreciate." These are warm, but not over the top. They feel sincere and considered. When something is okay but not special, you might say, "It's not really my favorite, to be honest. I can take it or leave it. It's fine, just not really my thing." Or, "I don't dislike it. It just doesn't excite me." These are your neutral, honest expressions. Very useful when you want to be truthful without being negative. When you don't really like something, you might say, "It's not really my cup of tea. I'm not that big on it. I've never really warmed to it. It doesn't really do anything for me." Or, "I tend to find it a bit much." These express a clear preference against something without being harsh or rude. And when something really isn't for you, you might say, "I'd really rather not. I'm genuinely not a fan. It's just not something I enjoy at all, if I'm honest." Or, "I'd much rather avoid it if possible." These are your stronger negative expressions, but still polite, still thoughtful, still leaving space for the other person. The beauty of this spectrum is that it gives you so many options. You don't have to go from "I love it" to "I hate it." There's a whole world of language in between, and fluent English speakers live in that space. They're precise, they're honest, and they're always kind about it. All right, my friends, we've covered so much ground today. We've listened to 4 full conversations. We've broken down the language. We've practiced the expressions. We've talked about the feelings behind the words. And you've had a chance to try some of these things yourself. I genuinely hope that this session has given you something real, not just a list of phrases to memorize, but a deeper understanding of how English speakers think and feel when they talk about what they like and don't like. This is the kind of English that builds connection. It's the kind of English that makes people feel heard and respected, even when you disagree with them. It's the kind of English that makes conversations feel easy and warm and genuinely human. And that's what fluency really is. It's not perfection. It's not speaking without an accent. It's being able to express who you are, your taste, your personality, your feelings, in a way that connects you to the people around you. So take these expressions. Use them. Try them out in your next conversation. Write some of them in your notebook. Come back and listen to this episode again, because every time you listen, you'll catch something new. That's just how language learning works. It's layered. It's gradual. And every time you engage with it, you go a little bit deeper. If you enjoyed today's episode, and I really, genuinely hope you did, please subscribe if you haven't already. Leave a comment down below telling me one expression from today that you're going to use this week. I want to know. And share this video with someone who's learning English, because this kind of content is exactly what they need. I'm Alex. This is English in Fluency, and I'll see you in the next one. Keep going. You're doing better than you think.